I don't really know how to describe it. Here's the thing. When I see something I like, I want to have a memory of it or a photo or something that would remind me of it. My best example would be my fictional story I created. I basically don't go a single day without thinking about it or writing a page of it. Most of the times, I even spend 2 hours after I was supposed to sleep talking to myself and thinking truff all the details. And so every time I lose or forget something like that, even just a small line of dialogue I really liked and thought it would fit into my story, it bothers me way more than I think it should. The other thing is when I start isolating myself, because I also fear anything that could make me lose my memories or my entire self, to the point where I struggle to trust other people around me because I think that they might copy my original ideas and then there would be nothing to recognize me for. What I'm trying to say is that I value my fictional story so much, it's the thing I want people to recognize me for. If it doesn't reach the public as a series or something, I don't know what else could make people recognize me in a good way. Then not many people would remember me for long. Edit. After doing some more research, I self diagnosed myself with athzagoraphobia.
I'm not sure what my phobia is called or if anyone else has it. I have a pretty specific phobia. I don't use the word phobia lightly. When I have to describe to someone, I have to swallow vomit and do a few stimming exercises to keep calm. Believe me when I say it's taking me a long time to type this, but I'm asking because I have never met anyone with this fear and I feel a bit alone in it. I usually summarize by saying that my phobia is body horror, but that isn't right. It's specific. My fear is plants growing out of someone's body. Even as I type this, I can't even look at what I'm typing because it horrifies me to my core. Things like the comic book character Poison Ivy don't bother me, but things like the odd life of Timothy Green do. That's when my friends found out about this fear. They wanted to see the movie, and I had a panic attack just because I couldn't even explain why. Some other things for context, I suppose. I'm not scared of plants. Some weird plants do make me uncomfortable, but it isn't this fear that I feel. I also am scared of things like mold. These are to a point that still water makes me extremely anxious because of the bacteria. Even if a dish is in the sink or something, that scares me a bit. So there could be something about growth of things or something along those lines. I don't know if it would help me to confirm or deny this, but here's something else to provide context. Sometime between 2007 and 2009, I either dreamt or really saw a news story about a disease where people had trees growing inside them. When I tell you I could hardly leave my house, it's not something that has a horrible toll on me, but it is something that's difficult to explain and sometimes even embarrassing because people don't know what I'm talking about. Does anyone else feel this way? Maybe understanding it and hearing from others can help me deal. I find myself worried I'll see it all the time because I do enjoy horror and art, and sometimes it's a logical place for those things to go. Anyway, sorry for the long post, especially considering I typed it on mobile. Also, sorry if anything is jumbled. I was a bit too anxious to proofread. Just curious to hear thoughts on this, and if anyone is with me.
So I have two very odd, very specific phobias, fears that are somewhat similar. The first is those stairs with the white brick walls that sort of spiral with black rubber like steps, almost like school or office buildings, with those white fluorescent lights that aren't bright, but the kind you can hear a slight buzz from alone at night. And the second is those diners like in Arizona or New Mexico out in the middle of nowhere. The only people inside is the waitress with the lights like the stairways, but the cool night air added. Think those movies where the main character is on the run and they stop at one to get some food or rest, maybe fight scene. Also, the diner has that blue glitter aesthetic, but worn down. I wish I was joking. The diner has an actual reason for my fear. When I was 10, 13, my mom and dad were semi-drivers and I lived on the road with them. There was one diner we stopped at multiple times in Nevada, exactly like what I described. I just remember the cold air adding to the chill that I knew people died here. There were bullet holes all over some booths. It was so empty looking out the window and the area being black and barren. Even if you could see through the dark, you wouldn't need to.
In botany, we were learning about plant cells and their plasmodesmata, holes between cells that let things through. The photo that was on screen was a black and white photomicrograph of a singular one of these and like a super high quality one. It seemed so eerie to me for some reason. The edges of the pit swirled downward with like grooves on the side, leading into a dark abyss. Seeing that picture weirded me out, and I got the sense that I shouldn't be seeing this. It was such a small scale thing blown up to a huge proportion. It looked like a weird world that humans weren't meant to exist in. It's like I was intruding into somewhere I shouldn't be. Is there a name for this feeling? Phobia, if it is one?
Help finding term for my wife's severe and rare phobia. My wife has a severe fear of the human body. It is unrelated to OCD or body dysmorphic disorder, and we have ruled those out entirely for her over time. She has an irrational fear of things like belly buttons, feet, internal organs, veins, eyes, tendons, muscles, skin itself, bodily fluids. Just a general overall extreme and irrational fear of the human body and all of its external and internal anatomy. We know there is a term specifically for internal organs, illnesses, deformities, but we can't seem to find a term for her phobia of the entire human body. Somatophobia is also not applicable, as it's specifically a religious or cultural idea and not an actual phobia term from what we've read. Any help would be awesome.
Name for being disgusted by plant mutations? It's a feeling between fear and disgust. When plants' roots do things they're not supposed to do, or when things grow out of small holes where they shouldn't be protruding. I can't stand it. For example, I noticed my snake plant, which is in a pot, has grown a root that is snaking out of a hole at the bottom of the pot, and it's very disturbing. Any idea what this is? Might be a couple separate things. Mutations, things protruding out of holes, and plants doing things they shouldn't do.
Does anyone relate to this? Know what phobia this is? Ever since I was around 5 years old, I have had a pretty odd feeling when it comes to doors. Not really all doors, more just double doors. For some reason, I will get the feeling the door will not reach the door frame and won't close, if that makes sense. Usually when I get this feeling, the idea of a situation where I need to lock the door in an emergency will come to me. With the double doors, it's usually the thought of them not coming together and there being a gap in between them and allowing them to swing open.
Phobia on moving inanimated objects. A friend have a very specific phobia that I can't even Google it. She think it is trypophobia, but she don't have any worries with holes or anything like that. Her problems are with big concentrations of things moving on together, just like a lot of bees or butterflies together, or just leaves on wind moving together. Anyone knows anything like that, or can tell us if it really is trypophobia or it has a specific name to the condition? Thanks.
What is this weird phobia I have called scared of holes? I have a weird fear of holes. Like I feel utter terror of certain types of holes. Like it can be a damaged wall with rebar showing. Or it can be wounds, depending on the wounds. If something is showing inside, it's worse, like the rebar. I remember watching the show Daybreak on Netflix, and someone had some wounds on their back that set me off, but also deep holes in the ground. But I also have a fear of heights, so I'm not sure if that's more related to that. Maybe it's not holes. Come to think of it, I also have a weird aversion to cross-sections, like a diagram of the inside of a tree, for example. That feels more similar to the aversion to rebar than the deep holes does. Does any of this ring a bell?
Fear of water? I'm not scared of water exactly, but I have a weird thing with water being inside. For example, I'm terrified of the Pirates of the Caribbean ride at DW, Fire in the Hole at SDC, and this waterfall room at Casa Bonita. It's not as bad if there's a window or something close by, but I will literally have nightmares about water and being inside. I love swimming and stuff, so it's not water specific. But I've never been able to find anyone else with this fear or even a name for it. Any ideas? Oh, and it's even worse if the water is dark or an unnatural color. Truly, I'm about to have a panic attack right now.
Is there a name for my niche? Phobia? Hi. Multiple times I tried to get information by research, but it is specifically hard since it could trigger the phobia described as following. Whenever I see a picture or video of roller coasters or big outdoor slides, I have the sudden ick and urge to look away immediately. Like if the picture could hurt me. I cannot handle to look at it. Another fun ride, like the one that features a cart going underwater, is one of the most triggering. It's not about POV on the ride, but the picture of the whole thing scare my brain to look away. Fun fact, I have no problems riding roller coasters at all. I think looking at them in RL is okay too, but I fear that eventually it will trigger me in real life someday. Sorry, my English might be a little wonky here and there.
Is there a name for my hyperspecific fear? I'm just going to come right out and say it. I have a phobia of vegetables, not all food items, literally just vegetables, being depicted as alive, and not even every sort of depiction. I'm totally fine with VeggieTales. I mean, more like Vegemals and soup opera. Essentially, vegetables that are depicted as animals and are made entirely of vegetables without any humanoid features. Again, like the VeggieTales. Every time I see stuff like that, I just freeze up and get this hollow feeling in my stomach and start grinding my teeth. The first time I had this reaction was when I was 7 years old. 17 years later, it's still the same reaction every time. I know I sound fucking crazy right now, but I was wondering if there was a name for this. Google is not helping much in the way of fear of vegetables being depicted as alive.
Well, friends, it's about that time. Time to smash the shit out of that like button, that is. After that, folks, just stick around. There's more wackiness right up ahead and you won't be disappointed.